Okay, lights, microphone, camera, coffee, we're good to go. Today we're going to discuss, do YouTubers make the best photographers? Or do they? So with each of these videos in this series, we need to talk photography. I always want to try and make them, or that's the idea, is to make them short and snappy and, a few bullet points. But I always tend to just go on way above my budgeted time, and I think it's good to keep to a budget. So I'm going to consciously try and do that today. So let's go straight into it. Do YouTube photographers actually make the best photographers? Now, I've spent quite a bit of time thinking about this, not just over the past couple of weeks when I thought about whether I could actually add this into this series, but a lot longer, probably 4 years. And the reason for this is ever since I got into YouTube, not me recording videos, but actually watching other photographers on YouTube, I always had the impression that, yes, they were probably the best photographers out there, the best the internet had to give. But was I right or was I wrong? Now, with every episode I've done, these are just my personal thoughts, and your thoughts as well. And obviously, I'm not going to mention any of the YouTube channels that I watch, that I agree with, that I think is good, bad, ugly, and in between. Because at the end of the day, it's all personal preference. So back when I first picked up my first DSLR and I wanted to go out and actually do some landscape photography, I didn't know what the heck to look for. I would just tend to go to a pretty location and just snap away, normally handheld. And like a majority of us, I'd come home, put the images in the computer and think, well, they're not really that great. Whiz them through Lightroom, adjust all the sliders way too much and think, okay, yeah, I've created something, I'll post it online. So naturally, I started scrolling through the internet to see what I could find that would give me some hints and tips and, yeah, just make this journey into photography a little bit more bearable. And it didn't take me long until I discovered YouTube and the photographers on YouTube. I started watching a couple of channels, subscribed, got into it, and I was watching sort of on a weekly basis and trying to understand what these photographers were going through on each of their adventures. The more time I spent on YouTube, the more photographers I discovered. But as I started to develop as a landscape photographer, I could also see some of the flaws that some of these photographers had. Were they as good as I originally thought? And I also found that they all followed a very similar recipe. The videos were very similar, even the music was very similar, and certainly the images. They were all going to the same locations and coming back with, similar things. And I think that's one of the reasons why I started my YouTube channel. The first being to document my days out to friends and family, but the second to see what I could do. And I quickly discovered it wasn't as easy as I thought it was going to be. The biggest issue with being a photographer on YouTube is you've got to think of this twice. You've got to think of the content, you've got to think of the quality of the video, and you've also got to think of the images. And this makes it doubly hard than any other genre on YouTube. So I think there are two main ways to look at this topic, the good and the bad. Let's look at the bad first. So as a photographer on YouTube, you rock up to a location. You have to find not only composition for your images, but also the video. The video has to look as good as the images do. At least that's my theory. I know not everybody follows the same suit. And a lot of photographers will argue you're either a photographer or a videographer. The two will never meet. And I think that's utter rubbish. I think photography trains you to understand how a shot works, and it's just about translating that into video. Every part of the B-roll and the normal speaking to the camera, the shot is set up the way it would be as if it was an image. Ensuring they follow the rule of thirds, making sure you have everything you want in that scene, and generally trying to make the video look as good and cinematic as possible. For me, photography has really helped in setting that shot up for video. Don't get me wrong, I also have a passion for video. I also have a passion for setting the shots up right and editing the videos to the best the best that I can do. Hopefully that comes across. But time and time again, I see photography YouTubers going out there and completely messing the video up. Far too much headroom, none of the shots are set up correctly. The editing is, at best, appalling. And I always think to myself, why? Why can't these guys seem to get it right? Their photography is generally quite good, but the video production is real amateur at best. And I kind of understand it. Because so many times we rock up to locations, and certainly if it's a sunrise or a sunset, we don't have the time. We don't have that time to sort of sit and work out what our video is going to look like and what the theme of this video is going to be. And I know a lot of people put the focus into actually doing just the photography. And this is where the issue lies. And this is where I think it's a bit of a skill set where you've got to manage your time in each of these locations. You've got to understand what skill set you actually have and what you're going to work. As we all know as photographers, you've got blue hour and golden hour. I tend to prefer to shoot in blue hour, but shooting from blue into golden hour is always, you always seem to get the best light. So that's a very short window to actually go out there and actually create a video and take some amazing images. Because let's face it, you guys who are watching a photography channel, you want to see good images. That's the reason why you tune in. And ultimately, that's the reason why we create these videos as well. So this gives us a very short window of opportunity to get those images. So what I tend to do when I rock up to a location, I'll do as much B-roll as I can, then do the piece of the camera, and then focus on the images whilst the light is good. And this is where it's key. You've got to use that time. Ignore the video camera, ignore you guys. Sorry, but I've got to ignore you guys while I take those images and take what I want. If I was to just rock up there with my D850 and just focus on getting some images and looking for compositions around that area, I would probably come away with images, let's say 20% better. I think the composition would work a lot more. I'd be a lot more creative. My mind would be focused on the photography, completely zoned in to what I need, instead of worrying about the video as well. So yes, I believe that creating a video and doing photography dilutes the whole creativity of that day. It's almost as if you're sharing that skill set, and you possibly won't get the best images from it. But on the flip side of that, you've also got the positivity about it as well. YouTube has got me out a lot more. I know that not only have I got to do video, but I've also got to get images from there as well. And it makes me work a lot harder. And I think this is worth its weight in gold, being put under that pressure. Now, I understand that too much pressure isn't good and it sort of turns people off, and you sort of put photography or YouTube or whatever, any of your creative skills to one side, because too much pressure just isn't good. But I think we all need a little bit of pressure. We all need that motivation to get out there and actually go out and create. And this isn't just aimed at photographers. This is aimed at anybody. You name it. Once you created a YouTube channel, you tend to have to go out and actually create content for your YouTube channel. Otherwise, you'll never succeed. So in turn, once you see the views starting to go up, the subscriber rate starting to go up, the thumbs up going up, it gives you that real buzz to actually go out and actually start thinking of where my next location is going to be, what's my next video going to be of, and trying to better your previous content. It's a little bit addictive, but in a good way. And this is what YouTube has done to me. It's made me go out and create. Times when I'd much rather stay at home and relax and put my feet up, enjoy a coffee, watch a film, put the PlayStation on. No, I've gone out and actually recorded videos because ultimately that's what I want to do. I love the creation of making the video, editing it, putting the music together and creating something that I can deliver. Whilst on top of that, actually going out and taking images as well. I mean, let's face it, photography is my first passion. Video, my second. So to sum up my thought, do YouTubers make the best photographers? Possibly not. It all depends on their skill. But one thing they do is work a hell of a lot harder than just going out there and taking images. Photography and video combined together, yes, it probably does dilute the whole creativity. And I'm sure a majority would be able to go out and actually take much better images. Probably another 10, 15, 20% better images than if they weren't focusing on video as well. But bottom line, if they weren't doing the video for you guys to watch, would they actually be in that location anyway? Who knows? So there we go. That's my thought. Let's hear what you guys have to say. Just refilling some coffee. Right then. Got my trusty old iPad. Let's see what you guys have got to say about this. Again, to keep this video shorter, I'll just do bullet points from each of your comments if that's okay. Well, I hope it is. You're not really going to be able to argue with me until you comment back on this video. So starting off, Craig Yates. Very similar points to myself, actually. Not all YouTubers make the best photographers to start with. When you're out making a vlog, the making, filming, and presenting of the video can overtake the still photography. Craig also mentions about the more videos they actually do, the more relaxed and more confident they become in front of the camera. They relax, and that comes through on the video and the photography as well. This then reflects on the quality of both video and images they share. Yeah, completely agree, Craig. Bev Donovan says, really great question there. I follow a variety of channels with probably around 2 to 3 being photography related. Most of these I follow were usually photographers before starting YouTube, and for the pros has become another source of income. I don't think any of these I follow are solely YouTubers, or dare I say, influencers. She then also goes into a number of YouTubers that she watches. One of them being very popular with an afro, apparently knows photography. She then also mentions about how she loves travel and sort of seeing these photographers sort of travelling around in each of these locations. So yeah, thank you so much, Bev. Hugh Wolf mentions some YouTubers are excellent photographers because they've learned to slow down and think about the shot they get for good results. Yeah, I kind of understand that. Perhaps that's due to the transfer of knowledge from the cinematography. Whatever the case, some are excellent while others are mediocre at best. Personally, I like photos that show the unusual. Different point of view on an everyday location can be amazing. As no one has seen it, as they aren't looking. Hugh then also mentions sweeping epic vistas are nice, but they're always better to experience it firsthand. Similar experience to those concerts I mentioned in the previous vlog. Thank you so much, Hugh. The studio mentions, yes, they do make the best photographers because every photographer that I've seen on YouTube explains the shot and makes me, in turn, think about the shot I'm going to take myself. It's almost as if I take you guys along with me to understand what I'm looking for. Very good point, actually. I suppose we do talk about the composition and what we're actually doing. I don't do that as much as I probably should, but yeah, we do tend to talk about what we're actually looking at on those locations. And if you guys can take that away with you, then great. Tufty Hill says, hi Ben, an easy one this. Do YouTubers make the best photographers? Not always. The same way that good photographers don't always make good YouTubers. Very good point. There's a channel I subscribe to, won't mention the name, where the photographer, with apparently 15 years experience, advised to avoid zooming in as much as possible with the lens because you lose resolution. Wow. But there are a large number of YouTubers who are excellent photographers. I think that's a really good point. We can watch YouTubers thinking that they know what they're talking about, and they don't. And I think that's why I personally don't go into too much detail of actually what I'm looking for, because I could lead people down the wrong path. So I think it's important you as a viewer sort of take what you need from each of these videos. Don't take it as gospel, because we don't know everything. That's just the point. We don't know everything within photography. Craig Pfeiffer Photography says, YouTubers do not make the best photographers. I see no correlation between being a YouTuber and the quality of photography. I do think it's important to have photographers of all levels on YouTube, because it's possible to learn something from everybody. I enjoy watching the great, mediocre and almost decent photographers, knowing that I can take what's useful and throw away what isn't. Completely get that. And I think this is one of the things about inspiration. And recently, myself and Sarah have started running together. And I'm going to go a little bit off path here, but we started running. And we were talking the other day about how we draw our inspiration, how we actually get our inspiration. And we're two very different people when it comes to drawing inspiration. I will get my inspiration from people that as they run past me, they almost knock me over with the force of the wind. I'll try and keep up. Never will do, but I will try, and that's where my inspiration is. And that will push me to get better and better. Whereas Sarah is part of a running club, and she actually draws her inspiration from the slow runners. She thinks if that person can run, well, so can I. And I kind of understand that sort of idea, but I guess it depends what works for you. I thought that might be a battle of the sexes, men versus women, but I don't know. The more people I speak to, I'm sort of getting confused messages. So I always draw my inspiration from the good runners, and in the photography world, good photographers. Whereas if Sarah's a photographer, she'd probably draw her inspiration from the poor photographers. So it's whatever you can, it's however you get that inspiration. I don't think it really matters where you get the inspiration from, as long as you get it. Steve Singh's Photography says, do YouTubers make the best photographers? Easy answer, no. I do think that they can be a great teacher on photography and inspiration to get you out there and give it a go. Yeah, good point. Badger's left it pretty simple and says, no, as they're all left to their solitude on Flickr. Kilimaro Images says, do YouTubers make the best photographers? Yes and no. Some YouTubers I follow are amazing photographers, and you can see it through their channel on how they've honed in on their skill set. I love YouTube photographers that actually show you in the field how they consider everything and how they make their capture. Some YouTubers are just trying to make a quick buck out of being a YouTuber. Their photography is no better than the next photographer. What's this quick buck we keep talking about? I think those days of making decent money on YouTube, they've well gone. I also think that the best photographers on YouTube do actually let their photography suffer. He then also mentions how a lot of them are trying to get cinematography correct, which sort of makes the images struggle quite a bit as well. I also think that most photographer YouTube channels just follow the latest fads to grow. For example, Adobe has just released the latest update, and yes, there is a lot of that. So thank you, Martin, some great points there. Bilingual says, I don't know, since I don't look at any other social media like Instagram, etc. I do know, however, that I've never heard so many different people complain about light. Yeah, I think we're all a bit guilty of that, certainly on YouTube. Tony mentions, do YouTubers make the best photographers? Hell no. When you look at the guys and girls that went before us, he mentions about Ansel Adams and a few others, and mentions how they're much better photographers, and yeah, sort of into some of the detail of that. But yeah, some great points there. He also mentions how he studies Ansel Adams and sort of understands his photography and tries to teach himself that as he goes along. I think that's some great points, Tony. And I have a bit of a question regarding certainly the old greats, the sort of forefathers of photography. On the back of that, I always think to myself, because a lot of people will always mention Ansel Adams. Now, yes, he was probably the forefather of photography, and I'm certainly not taking any of his work away. But would he survive in today's world with Instagram and all the rest of the social medias? Or would he just blend in with the rest of us? Who knows? Maybe some food for thought there. Adam Hurst mentions, absolutely not. Some of the worst photographers I've ever seen are on YouTube. I won't mention any names, good man, but I purely watch them just for a laugh. Now, I'm not saying that I'm the best photographer, but watching these guys makes me realise actually how good I am. But there's always two sides of every story, and some of the best photographers I've ever seen are YouTubers. He then also mentions a couple of channels that he watches. There's a couple on there actually, Adam, that I've never seen. So I'll have a look at those. I do enjoy taking what I can from each of these channels and replicating it myself whilst I'm out in the field. Thank you very much. And that's it. That draws the end to this topic of, do YouTubers make the best photographers? I think we can all take something away from this, but I think the general thought is very, very similar all the way across this series of everybody's got really interesting points of view, and some people will raise some other sort of side topics on this. But generally, I think we all think the same. That some are very good, some are very bad, and some are mediocre. And do you know what? It's good to have all these categories. I think my leaving thought will be, just take what you can from these channels. This is why we create them, to showcase our images, and hopefully for you guys to be able to take those images, take our thoughts, take our whole thought process of that day, and be able to use it whilst you're out doing your own images. So on to the next video, the finale. And that is all about photography trends. Let me know in the comments of this video of what trends you followed. Which ones you would never take on anymore, and which ones have actually developed you as a photographer. I'm going to cover things like long exposure photography, colour grading, shallow depth of field, HDR, and any other trends that have sort of been and gone, and how I've used all of these, utilised them, and actually moved away from them, and the reasons why. So that'll be on the next topic of We Need to Talk Photography. So thank you so much for watching to the end. It's been great having you here. Hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, give me the thumbs up and leave a comment, even if it's just to say hello. But also if you want your comments that are related to the next topic read out in the next video, let me know your thoughts on photography trends. It would be great to know. And if you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing. It would be great to have you on board of the channel. You're more than welcome. Right, I'm going to wrap this up now. All the best. Take care. The next video out very, very soon. Bye-bye now. Ooh.